Hello.
Hello.
You guys, we got new mics, so I hope they sound a little bit better. We're pretty excited. We just went through like an hour's worth of trying to get it set up to be able to record because we know nothing.
We're true professionals. We know exactly what we're doing.
We watched a YouTube video, so
That makes us professionals.
I hope this works. Anyway, it's so cold here. A cold front just came in, and I'm very happy to be at Catherine's house recording because my heater doesn't work.
And I've got the heat on. It is nice and
It's
toasty
so
in here.
nice. I was like, I didn't want to get out of bed this morning because I was so cold. My house is freezing. It's like 60 degrees in there or something.
Gosh. Yeah.
Anyway.
There was actually snow on the ground this morning. It started snowing last night. It was ridiculous in November.
It never snows this early.
No.
So weird.
If it's gonna have any sort of like freezing precipitation,
So close.
It's always ice. It's never snow this early.
Right.
Snow always comes in like January and February. Before then, it's always like ice.
Exactly. It didn't snow at my house, but it snowed at Catherine's house. So,
Yep, never snow on the ground.
yeah. Anyway, welcome to Spooky Okie, where we talk about the weather.
We talk about the crazy weather in Oklahoma,
Oh, yes.
like true Okies do.
True. Speaking of true, our
We're gonna talk
episode
about-
this week is true crime.
True crime.
It's all based in Oklahoma. We're so excited. We're each going to tell a story, and we don't know the story that the other one is doing. So we're going to be surprised.
Yep, and I know at least my story. I know Madison said hers is too. It's a doozy.
Oh,
It
yeah.
is crazy.
Yes, it's so wild. I guess let's get started. Let's jump right in.
Yeah.
You ready?
Let's
Okay,
go.
I'm going to go first. And I am going to be covering the murder of Tonya Hughes and the kidnapping of Michael Hughes.
All right.
So, have you heard of this?
I'm not.
Oh, it's crazy. I hadn't heard of it either, but it's insane. So, there's a really good documentary on Netflix called Girl in the Picture.
Okay.
Have you heard of it?
Uh-uh.
Oh, okay. Well, you have to watch it after this because
Okay.
they do a better job than I do. But it's so good.
Okay.
So I got a lot of my information from that. And then I also got it from Wikipedia, obviously. And then FBI.gov, The Oklahoman, DM Talkies, and Unsolved Mysteries.
Nice.
So we're going to jump right in. This is all, I mean, it's kind of based all over, but like the main things happen in Oklahoma.
Okay.
So, in April of 1990, 3 men were driving along an Oklahoma City road around 12:50 a.m. when they discovered the body of a woman on the side of the road.
Ooh,
Yeah,
not good.
not a good start. We're diving right in. So, it seemed that she had been the victim of a hit and run, and although she was still alive, she was in critical condition.
It's never hit and run.
It's never truly a hit and run, unfortunately. This woman was identified as 20-year-old Tonya Hughes. Around 8:30 the next morning, her husband, Clarence Hughes, was notified of the accident. Tonya also had a 2-year-old son named Michael. Poor baby. After Tonya arrived at the hospital, it became apparent that this may not be a simple hit and run.
Of course
surprise,
not. It's
surprise.
never just a hit and run.
Right. Tonya had injuries that were not typical in a hit and run, such as extensive old bruising and blunt force trauma to the back of her head that was not consistent with a car accident.
Yikes.
Yeah.
Not good.
Not good at all. Friends also reported that her marriage to Clarence, who was significantly older than her, was not a happy one. I wouldn't normally bring up an age difference, but it comes into play later.
Gotcha.
He was known to be extremely controlling and would not even let her take her son anywhere alone.
Okay, yeah, that's not a good sign.
Not good at all.
Yeah, and when you first said, like, the husband was notified of the accident, I was like, why hasn't the husband already said anything? But,
Strange, right?
Yeah.
That it took, 8 hours or something.
Yeah, that's not a good sign either.
No, not a good sign at all. You would think you would know.
Like, if
she didn't come home
If she
at
didn't
night?
come home, you'd be like, oh, something's wrong.
Right,
I
wouldn't you be
should
concerned?
Call the police.
Right, you would think so. No,
Okay.
he was notified at 8:30 the next morning, and he came to the hospital, but,
Yeah.
And then, sadly, she died 5 days after the accident, so she did not
wow.
make it. So here's a little bit about what we know about her at this point. I feel like I should kind of preface this with, we're jumping around a lot, because I'm going to kind of cover things in the order that they were discovered.
Okay.
And there's a lot of aliases and just a lot of twists and turns. So it's a
Okay.
little bit confusing, but
Gotcha.
I'll try to clarify.
Okay.
Feel free to ask questions because There's like a million different names in this and stuff.
Okay, sounds good.
So what we know so far is she died from a quote-unquote hit and run.
Okay.
But that was probably not really a hit and run.
Probably not.
She had been employed as a dancer at a strip club in Tulsa called Secrets.
Okay.
Her coworkers felt that someone should notify her family, so they began trying to locate them. When they called who they believed to be her mother, the woman said that her daughter Tonya had died when she was 18 months old.
Oh,
so
not
her.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So her coworkers quickly figured out that Tonya was not who she said she was. She was using a fake name.
Gotcha.
After Tonya's death, her son Michael would not speak at all, and Tonya's best friend Karen knew that something was wrong. Hospital workers could tell as well that something was really off, and Michael was removed from his father and placed in a foster home.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's scary. Okay.
Yeah. So even though it was apparent that there was foul play, the investigation stalled. Like, really nothing came of it for a long time. It was just kind of at a standstill and just deemed a hit and run, even though
they
knew there was something else going on.
Right.
But they didn't have any evidence, really. So Michael was with his foster family for the next 4 years, and they were in the process of adopting him. During that time, a paternity test was done, and it was discovered that Clarence was not the boy's father.
Bum, bum, bum. Mm-hmm. What? Okay.
Yeah, so he's not the dad. But on Monday, September 12th of 1994, when Michael was 6 years old, Clarence...
8 days before I was born, by the way.
Oh, yes. Crazy. So Clarence entered Michael's school, Indian Meridian Elementary School in Choctaw, at around 9 a.m. He approached the school principal with a gun. He then entered Michael's first grade classroom with the principal at gunpoint, took both Michael and the principal, and all three left in the principal's car.
Oh my gosh.
Terrifying, right?
Yes.
Awful. This baby was in first grade. My mom teaches first grade.
I can't even imagine. I can't imagine that happening in a high school classroom. Like, I mean,
right.
That's just terrifying.
Awful. Like, 6 years old.
Gosh.
Yeah. And I mean, like, what could the principal have done? He was at gunpoint.
Yeah, he was
at
gunpoint. There's nothing
the best thing to do is to protect all of the other kids is to
go along
with it
try to
at the moment.
Yeah, at the moment to try to keep him
exactly
from shooting everybody.
Yeah. So I don't even know what I would do in that situation.
Yeah.
The principal was found tied to a tree about 1.5 miles from the school later that afternoon, and he was fine.
Okay.
They tied him to a tree, but he was fine.
Okay.
But Clarence and Michael were nowhere to be found.
Yikes.
Yeah. The FBI quickly got involved and discovered that Clarence Hughes was also not who he said he was.
Shocking.
His real name was Franklin Floyd, and he had an extensive criminal record.
Franklin Floyd just sounds like a con artist name.
It really does.
It just sounds like, he's shady.
Yeah.
Franklin Floyd.
Right?
Yeah.
It just sounds really questionable. I'm sorry if we have anybody out there, out of our 3 listeners who's named Franklin Floyd. I apologize.
It also just sounds like, like an old cop show. Franklin Floyd.
Oh, it does. Franklin Floyd, P.I.
Yeah, it does.
But apparently that was his actual name. He had a bunch of aliases, but this was his, actual legal name he was born with.
That his legal name sounds sketchier. No wonder he's got an alias.
Right.
With the name Franklin Floyd, everybody's going to be watching you.
Right?
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it's like the Pretty Boy Floyd thing.
Yeah.
Maybe that's kind of it. I don't know. But I agree. It sounds questionable. So here's a little bit of backstory on him. So we're jumping back in time a little bit.
Okay.
And going to kind of see his upbringing. So Franklin Floyd was born on June 17th, 1943 in Barnesville, Georgia. He was the youngest of 5 children. His father, Thomas, was a cotton mill worker and an alcoholic. He died from kidney and liver failure when Franklin was only a year old.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's rough.
Yeah. His mother, Della, was unable to care for the children as a young widow. She was, I think, only 29 or so and had 5 kids.
Had 5 kids and her husband just died? Yeah. That's not...
Right.
Not great.
Not great. Not a good start. So after living with her parents for a while, she eventually left all of the children in the care of the Georgia Baptist Children's Home.
Okay.
Franklin was about 3 years old at the time. And then things really go downhill from here for him.
Okay.
So, I mean, you always know whenever they grow up to do terrible things.
Yeah.
Most of the time, terrible childhood.
Yeah.
And, yeah, accurate in this case. Franklin reported being bullied by the other children for being too feminine and reported being sexually abused by the other boys there.
Yikes.
And he was 3 years old when he got there. So, that's
not good.
This sort of thing is all he can remember,
Yeah.
He was also subjected to harsh punishments by the staff, including having his hands burned in hot water.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So, like, even the people who are supposed to be taking care of you are treating you terribly.
That's horrible.
I know. He ran away when he was 16, so he lived there his entire childhood, from 3 years old to 16 years old, and went through all of that.
Horrible.
I know. So he ran away when he was 16, but he was soon caught stealing food from a nearby home. And if I remember right, I didn't actually put this in there, but the children's home basically contacted his older sister and was like, you have to take him or we're pressing charges. Like, you got to take him. And so he went and lived with his older sister for a while before going to Indianapolis to search for his mother, Della.
Okay.
He learned that she had become a prostitute there.
Gotcha.
He then had her help him forge legal documents, and he went to California and enlisted in the Army. However, he was discharged only 6 months into his service after it was discovered that the papers were forged and he was actually underage.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Which, imagine how different things would have worked out if he could have just stayed in the Army.
I mean, yeah, honestly, it probably would have just been better for him if he had just been able to stay there.
I kind of wish they would have just let him stay there.
Be like, obviously you got some issues. Let's just keep you in and help you out.
Help you out, right?
Yeah.
I think he was 16 already.
Yeah, it's close enough.
I know. Not really.
Not at all.
He's a child. But based on how things turned out, it probably would have been better for him in the long run.
Yeah.
Anyway. Or like military school or something.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. Anyway.
Put him in some sort of like ROTC program.
Exactly. Like do something for him. Don't just be like, oh, bye. You're on your own again. Because this just like really set him on a bad path. And from this point on, his life of crime began and escalated quickly.
Yikes.
So in February of 1960, which I think he was still about 16 or 17, he broke into a Sears department store in California and stole a gun.
Lovely.
I didn't know they had guns at Sears. I mean, I guess maybe in 1960 they did.
Yeah, maybe back then they did.
I thought Sears... I don't even know that I've ever been in a Sears, honestly. Aren't they like appliances?
They're appliances, and they got a little bit of everything. Like they've got like appliances, and they even have clothes and
guns.
Don't think the guns are a thing anymore, but
I hope not. That's so weird. I went and bought a gun at Sears. I don't know. It just sounds weird.
It does sound weird.
But apparently they had guns at Sears in 1960, and he went and stole one. The police arrived quickly, and there was a shootout, during which Franklin was shot in the stomach. He survived after an emergency surgery and served 1 year in a youth institution. So he was still underage at this point.
Okay.
So he served 1 year there. But after being released, he was pretty quickly arrested again for violating his parole because he went to Canada for a fishing trip with a friend. Like, buddy,
all the things.
Why? Fish where you are.
There's plenty of ponds wherever you're at. I can promise you. Just
I know.
Go fishing there. Save it for after the parole, honey.
Like, why did you have to go out of the country?
Bless his heart.
I know. Not a good choice.
No.
Not a good choice.
No.
I mean, he was probably like 17, 18, so like, you know, it is what it is. But
high school boys don't always use the best decision-making skills.
Poor little things, yeah.
Yeah.
So he went to Canada for a fishing trip and got arrested.
Lovely.
And then in May of 1962, Franklin moved back to Georgia. The following month, he abducted and raped a 4-year-old girl and was sentenced to serve 10 to 20 years.
Oh, okay. That took a sharp
It just, like, really escalated out of nowhere.
Yeah.
I mean, I think this is really his first thing that had, like, a victim.
Yeah.
Everything else had been, like, he stole some things.
Right.
But this one
that's not
is
good.
awful.
Okay, that's terrible.
So he was sentenced to 10 to 20 years.
That should have been more.
I agree. In 1963, however, which is the next year, he escaped from prison and robbed a bank.
Okay.
Yeah. It's like I'm not even surprised at this point. Like, all right, I would expect that.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So, after being convicted of the robbery, he was sent to the Federal Reformatory in Ohio. And then after a failed escape attempt, so he just keeps trying.
Yeah.
So then he was sent to the United States Penitentiary in Pennsylvania.
Okay. Why is he, like, skipping over so many different places? Like, why is he sent to so many different...
I don't know. I'm really not sure.
Lines?
I'm wondering if some of them, like, if he's kind of moving up in, like, security levels,
maybe so. Okay.
Because of the, like, escape attempts, and, like, he just keeps trying, so maybe they, like, needed a really, really secure facility.
A better secure facility they didn't have in the state that he was tried in.
I mean, I truly don't know. That's just my best guess.
Okay.
So,
yeah, because it was like Ohio and then Pennsylvania and then...
He's
like,
all over the place. Yeah, California, Georgia, Ohio, Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Like, he's just all over.
Okay.
But yeah, he ended up in Pennsylvania. And then in November of 1972, he was released from prison and sent to a halfway house. This is 10 years after he raped the 4-year-old girl and was sentenced to serve 10 to 20 years. He's released 10 years later, and he, during that time, escaped from prison and robbed a bank, and then tried to escape again, and he still got out in 10 years.
That's ridiculous.
That makes me so mad.
Like, obviously he's not showing signs of change, so why is he getting out? Like, he should still be in there.
Make him serve that full 20 years at least.
At least.
And, I mean, he robbed a bank. Can you not add some time on for that?
Right.
I don't understand.
If his minimum for the rape was 10 years, he should be 10 years plus the minimum for
a bank robbery.
For the bank robbery.
I don't know what
and for an
that
escape
sentence is.
And for an escape attempt. Like, there should be, like, he should have longer than 10 years if you have all the minimums of that. That's ridiculous.
I agree. Like, he's obviously a dangerous individual. Like, he's somebody who should be in prison.
He's shown...
There's a lot of people there who probably shouldn't be there, but that's another story.
Right.
But it's like they let out the dangerous ones.
I don't
and
get
keep
it.
the people who don't really need to be there. I don't understand.
I don't
anyway,
get it
it makes me mad. But he got out after 10 years and was sent to a halfway house. And then on January 27th of 1973, only a week after being released from the halfway house, he attempted to kidnap and rape a woman at a gas station. Yeah. Gosh. She escaped, though, and he was arrested.
Good. Okay, good.
So at least he, like, got caught, and she was okay. She escaped.
Yeah.
I don't think anything actually happened. I think it was just an attempt.
Okay, good.
But while out on bond, why can he bond out? I don't understand.
Why? Yeah, I mean, if he's literally escaping prison, what makes you think that he's a good person, a good choice for bond? Like,
like he's not a flight risk? What? He literally escaped prison and robbed a bank, and then tried to escape again.
Yeah.
And you're still gonna let him out on bond and think he's gonna show up for court?
That's
why.
So apparently, some other people are also not using their good decision-making skills.
Exactly. There's a lot of poor choices being made here, and it just like keeps going too. Like, there's just a lot of poor choices all over the board. But anyway, while he was out on bond for some reason, he failed to appear at his court date and became a fugitive.
Really?
Shocking. I know, I read that and I was like, I mean, obviously. Like, did you not expect that?
Did you not see that coming? Like, not asking you to be psychic here, but can you not see the signs kind of laid out for you?
It's a pattern at this point. Like, that's just, anyway. So, that is the little backstory about Franklin Floyd. So that's what we knew about him up to there. He became a fugitive at that point and kind of disappeared.
Okay.
Nobody really knew where he was. And so then kind of back to the present day, sort of, the search for Michael.
Okay.
Although the FBI had discovered Franklin's true identity, they still had no clue where to find him or Michael. I mean, he had bounced around all over the place, so who knows?
Right.
So Michael, Tonya, and Franklin's pictures were all over the news as the search for Michael continued. Tonya's friends from the Club Secrets went to the FBI with their concerns about Tonya's identity and marriage problems. Like, up to this point, they hadn't really maybe said a lot about, like, oh, I don't think that's the right name. I think she's somebody else. They hadn't really said much.
Okay.
But at this point, they were like, something's up. Let's tell them what we know.
Yeah.
And then meanwhile, the FBI also received a call from a woman named Jenny Fisher, who recognized the picture of Tonya as her high school best friend, Sharon Marshall.
Oh,
So we've got another name.
Okay.
Yeah. Jenny was confused, however, because the man claiming to be Sharon's or Tonya's husband was actually the man Jenny recognized as Sharon's father, Warren Marshall.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why I mentioned the age difference earlier. That's why I just, like, threw it in there. Yeah. So, now we're going to go back in time again to learn about Sharon Marshall.
Okay.
So, and she was right. Like, that was Sharon. That was Warren. Like,
okay.
She was right. It wasn't like, oh, I think that's her. Like, that's who it was.
That's who it was.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Sharon attended high school at Forest Park High School in Georgia. She was the class of 86.
Okay.
Her friends described her as someone who was always helping and inspiring others. She was also a great student and incredibly smart and driven. She was in the gifted program, ROTC, and the science club. She had been accepted to the aerospace engineering program at Georgia Tech and had gotten a full scholarship.
Oh, wow.
So,
smart kid.
Very, very smart. Yeah.
Yeah.
However, she got pregnant before starting college, and her father would no longer let her attend.
Yikes.
Yeah.
Not good.
Not good at all. Also, her home life was not good at all. So her high school friend Jenny, the one that told the FBI who she was, she told the FBI about her experience staying the night with Sharon in high school. She reported that the only night she ever stayed with Sharon showed her some lingerie her father had bought for her.
Okay.
Yeah. Jenny remembered thinking it was really weird for a father to buy something like that for his daughter.
Yeah.
She then reported that later that night, Sharon's dad came into the room with a gun and raped Sharon.
Oh,
yeah.
My gosh. Okay.
Yeah. She said that the next, like, they didn't talk the rest of the night. She was just in shock. Like, he basically, like, came in with a gun and was like, put your head under your pillow or whatever. Like,
oh my gosh.
And then, like, raped Sharon. And then Jenny and Sharon probably wasn't in shock because that probably happened to her all the time.
Right.
But Jenny was in shock and, like, they didn't talk the rest of the night. And then the next morning, Sharon was like, it's fine. Like, I'm fine. You're fine. It's okay. He's just like that.
Oh my gosh.
Awful, right?
I can't imagine.
Yeah. She's in the documentary, too. And so she tells the story on the documentary. So I highly recommend watching the Netflix documentary, Girl in the Picture. But it's, I mean, obviously, it was so traumatic for her. Like, she was really emotional telling the story on the documentary, and, like, that it was, like, the most traumatic thing of her life.
Yeah.
And, like, of course, like, that's so awful.
Gosh.
Yeah. So Sharon and Warren soon moved to Tampa, Florida, where Sharon began working as a dancer in a strip club and also as a sex worker. She told friends that her father forced her to do this, and that she knew he was a terrible man, but she had a baby son, Michael, and couldn't leave.
Wow.
So he was using the baby to keep her there.
Her controlled, yeah.
So even though she by this time had realized she needs to get out, she couldn't. She was stuck.
Mm-hmm. She didn't have a way out.
Exactly. And so during her time in Tampa, Sharon became friends with a girl named Cheryl Camesso. This gets a little confusing with the names because it's Sharon and Cheryl.
Okay.
So just be warned. It soon became evident that Cheryl and Sharon were both being abused by Sharon's father, and that Cheryl wanted to escape the situation. So the friend wanted to escape.
Okay.
Cheryl, the friend, was seen arguing with Sharon's father one night in the parking lot of the club, and he threatened to kill her. And she went missing soon after.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah. So this is just like, it all just keeps stacking up. It's insane. So Sharon, her father, and baby Michael abruptly left Florida and moved to Oklahoma. I wonder why they had to leave quickly.
Wonder why.
Yeah. I also didn't put this in my notes, but they like lived in a trailer park. They lived in this trailer, and a neighbor on the documentary would like go over there and babysit Michael some. She was like a young girl. She reported like seeing he had put a tape in. They were gonna like record something on a like VHS tape, you know, because it was the 90s or I guess late 80s at this point. But that the tape already had something on it, and it was like footage of Sharon and Cheryl topless at a beach that Warren had recorded.
Okay, yeah, that's not good.
And she was like, "This is so weird. Why would you record something like that of your daughter and her friend? Like, what is happening?" And so then when they abruptly left, like this girl who had babysat Michael lived like a block or two away. Like she lived really close, and so they were like, "Oh, we have to go out of town. Will you keep an eye on the trailer?" And she was like, "Yeah." And then it mysteriously exploded.
Okay.
Right. Not sketchy at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just exploded.
It just happened to explode. Okay.
Happened to explode. So that's great. So no evidence from that.
Yeah, so did they ever find Cheryl?
We'll get to that.
Okay.
We'll get to that.
Okay.
So after they abruptly left Florida, they moved to Oklahoma. The FBI later discovered that it was on their way to Oklahoma that they changed their names to Clarence Hughes and Tonya Tadlock and then got married.
Okay.
They settled in Tulsa, where Sharon worked at the strip club Secrets until her death. So we're kind of caught back up to what we already knew.
Yeah.
So that's her backstory. So now back to the investigation. Now that the FBI had Clarence/Franklin/Warren's aliases, they were able to track him down in Kentucky.
Okay.
They like put a stop on all of his aliases so that they would be notified, and he tried to like renew a license. I think it was under Warren Marshall in Kentucky, and so they like went undercover and pretended like they were
gonna let him do that.
Yeah, they were gonna like deliver his license to him, and so then once he opened the door, they like arrested him.
Gotcha.
So they had to like, it was like a big deal. I don't know. That's just so weird to me. It sounds like a movie. Like,
it does.
We're going to dress up and pretend to...
There's a van outside, a delivery van.
Exactly. It's so weird. It's so, like, stereotypical, I guess. Like, what you would expect for a spy movie.
Yeah.
But they arrested him in Kentucky 2 months after kidnapping Michael. However, Michael was nowhere to be found.
Oh, no.
So he was not there. Neighbors and employers claimed to have never seen Michael, leading investigators to believe that Franklin had likely killed Michael before going to Kentucky.
Yikes. Oh, poor baby.
He went all around before he got to Kentucky. Like, if I remember right, he went maybe to Texas, and then he went to Atlanta, and then he took a bus from Atlanta to Kentucky, but there was only one bus ticket, so they knew he didn't bring him to Kentucky. Like, they don't know what happened to him, but he never made it all the way to Kentucky. The farthest he could have made it was Atlanta. So Franklin insisted that Michael was still alive, and he told many different stories about what had happened.
Okay.
You ready?
Yeah.
One story was that he had dropped Michael off with a rich person.
Oh. Is that what you did?
That's what he did.
Okay.
But he also said that Michael was safe in a foreign country.
Okay, so the rich person...
I guess took him to a foreign country?
Took him to a foreign country to live this lavish lifestyle. Is that it?
That's it, yes.
Okay.
Because somebody like Franklin Floyd knows lots of rich people.
Knows lots of them. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
With his...
Has lots of rich friends.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Right.
Okay.
So those were his stories. And it kept changing. He was just kind of saying random things. But
yeah.
Yeah, and actually, like, in the documentary, they have little clips from, like, footage, because, I mean, this was relatively recent. It wasn't a super long time ago.
Right.
I mean, this was in, like, 1994 or so.
Okay.
And they have footage of him, like, when they first arrested him, and they're like, "Where's Michael?" And he was like, "I don't know where he is, but he's my son, and I love him, and I hope they find him."
Dude, you're the one that took him.
Exactly. Like, what?
You're the one that's going to know what happened to him.
Right. He's insane. Like, it's insane.
Wow.
So sad. And, like, just watching him say that, awful.
Yeah.
It's so awful, because you're like, you most likely killed him. Like,
yeah, and you're saying this crap? Are you kidding me?
Oh, so awful. So, that was his story. They could have tried to charge him with the murder, but... I mean, they knew he was dead at this point. They hoped he wasn't, but they knew he was. Right. But they didn't have a body, and so it's really hard to get a murder conviction with no body.
Yeah, and you don't want to, like, try somebody and then
get away with it.
You get away with it because you can't double try somebody for the same crime. So,
right.
Yeah.
So they did try him for... Let's see. He was charged with kidnapping, carjacking, and multiple firearms charges. So, like, using a firearm during a carjacking, using a firearm during a kidnapping. And he was sentenced to 52 years in prison for those.
Did he actually serve these?
So, hold on. We'll get to it. Because during the investigation, police found a collection of pornographic photos of Sharon and another teenage girl, later discovered to be Cheryl Comesso.
Okay.
Among these photos were pictures of Cheryl in various stages of being bound and beaten.
Oh.
And they said on the documentary, like, seeing the pictures, they knew, like, this girl had to be dead. Nobody could survive that.
Oh, gosh.
So they saw pictures of it. But they didn't know who she was at that point.
Right.
They had no idea it was just some random teenage girl. But then years later, in 1995, Cheryl's body was found in Florida. So this would have been... I
can't believe it was found.
I know. It was like her skeletal remains found on the side of a highway.
Oh my gosh.
So this would have been, I mean, I guess kind of around the same time that this investigation was happening, because he kidnapped Michael in 1994.
Right.
So her body would have been found around the time that all the photographs were found. So I mean, it was good timing, I guess. But she had been missing since 1989, so it took 6 years to find her body.
I can't believe they found her body.
Isn't that crazy?
Especially in Florida. Like, I feel like with...
I mean, it's like that, swamps. I don't know.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, like, with it being the coast and things erode faster, because, I mean, Tampa's, like, on the coast. Like, I mean, I can't believe it's found.
I know. I was surprised. And I don't know. I'm not totally clear on, like, if the photographs helped lead to the body, or... if they just somebody happened to come across
the body,
like, I really don't know. But the timing was good, I guess, because then they had these photographs, and so he was able to be convicted of her murder.
Okay. Good.
So he was sentenced to death.
Okay.
For that. But although he had been caught, there were still no answers about what had happened to Michael. And then another unexplained question was, who actually was Sharon Marshall?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Because investigators discovered that she could not possibly be his biological daughter because he was in prison during the time she would have been conceived and born.
Yeah, wow, okay.
So this man, who had a kidnapping history, had a random little girl.
Gosh.
Yeah, and nobody knew where she came from. Nobody knew who she was. And so they searched forever trying to find out, who is this girl? How did he get her?
Yeah.
Like, what? They strongly suspected that he had kidnapped her as a child, obviously.
Yeah.
But for years, nobody had any idea who this missing little girl was or how she had ended up with Franklin.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Then, in 2005, a woman named Megan came forward claiming to be Sharon's daughter. It was confirmed through DNA, and they discovered that Sharon actually had 3 children.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, Michael was her first, followed by Megan and another child who we don't know who that was. We just know she had been pregnant 3 times. And so both of the younger 2 had been put up for adoption.
Okay.
So thank goodness got them out of that situation at least. And so that's kind of all that came of that. Like, they still, like, yes, they had the DNA and they were able to prove that, and they had a little bit more of her story, like knowing that she had multiple children.
Right.
But they still didn't know who she was or where she had come from.
Yeah.
But she did. The daughter came forward and was like, would her DNA help? Like, would the DNA of her daughter help with anything? And they were like, I mean, that would be great, yeah. And so it was confirmed, like, she's her daughter. But they still didn't know who Sharon was. But then in 2014, so, like, relatively recent, the FBI investigators decided to go to the prison to interview Franklin again. They were hoping to get some answers about what had happened to Michael and who Sharon was.
Okay.
So they were like, let's give it one last try. He's on death row. Let's see if we can get some answers.
Right.
Because nobody had ever been able to get anything out of him before.
Yeah.
Like, at all. So during this interrogation, Franklin finally admitted that he had shot Michael in the back of the head the same day he kidnapped him and buried him at the last exit out of Oklahoma on I-35.
Oh, wow.
Although an extensive search was done, Michael's body has never been found.
Oh, poor baby.
Also, you know what's really interesting about this?
What?
So, you know the place that we talked about going for an investigation?
Uh-huh.
That cemetery?
Uh-huh.
That's, you take the first exit.
Oh, wow.
Out of Oklahoma? Yeah. That's where he said he didn't say it was the cemetery, but, like, that cemetery is also a very well-known body dumping ground.
Oh, wow.
And it's that first exit.
That's crazy.
Isn't that really crazy? I read that and I was like, hold on. We're about to go there and do a ghost hunt. Like,
that's crazy.
Yeah. So, I guess, there you go. There's a sneak peek of
where we're going
Where we're going. Yeah.
Wow. Oh, my gosh.
I know, I read that and I was like, what? I thought, because I didn't realize he had, like, gone, like, to Texas and Atlanta and, like, all of those places. I thought he had just gone to Kentucky, so I was like, oh, maybe, like, on I-40 going out east, you know, maybe that's where it was. No, it was on I-35 because he was on the way to Texas.
Wow.
Yeah. So, but they never found him. They did, like, a really extensive search, and they've never recovered his body. Yeah. But during the interrogation, he also revealed that Sharon was actually a girl named Suzanne Marie Savakis. Okay. So they finally had her actual identity.
Had her name. Okay.
Yes. So now we're gonna backtrack again to earlier in her life.
Okay.
So in 1974, Franklin was using the alias Brandon Williams. So another name. There's so many at this point. This is why I was like, this is so confusing. I don't even know. But he was in North Carolina, so another place. He's all over. But in North Carolina, he met a single mother with 4 children, Sandra Brandenburg. Sandra had 3 daughters, Suzanne, who was 5, Allison, who was 3, Amy, who was 2, and she had 1 son, Philip, who was an infant.
Okay.
So Franklin and Sandra married after a month of dating, and Franklin convinced her to move with him to Dallas, Texas.
Okay, great.
Not a good start. So Sandra was arrested in 1975 for writing bad checks and was in jail for 30 days. When she was released, she found that Franklin had taken the children and left. So she goes to jail for 30 days, and I think it was either the documentary or one of the articles was saying she wrote bad checks to buy diapers.
That's so sad.
Yeah. And so she was in jail for 30 days, which okay, a month, not too long.
Not too long.
In the grand scheme of things.
Like...
But then, like, all that transpired because she was gone for 30 days is all of her children are gone.
Yeah.
And she doesn't know where they are. And when she went to the police for help and to report that the children were kidnapped, local authorities told her that he had a right to take the children since they were married and he was their stepfather. So they couldn't file a missing persons report.
How can they not? Like,
right?
You can't just take children without the other parent's consent. That doesn't work that way. I know.
And he's not legally their father.
No.
He's a stepfather.
He's a stepfather. Does he legally have the rights?
Right to them. I don't think so. I don't think he would.
I don't think that automatically happens when you get married.
I don't think so either. But they wouldn't file a missing persons report. And so she didn't know what happened to them. She ended up finding the middle two, so Allison and Amy, at a local children's home. He had just dropped them off.
Okay.
So they were safe. Like, that's
She's
good.
got them.
Mm-hmm. But never found Suzanne, the oldest, or Philip, the baby.
Oh.
Yeah. Years later, it was discovered that Philip had been placed up for adoption in North Carolina.
Okay.
So he also was safe.
Okay.
But she never found the oldest, the 5-year-old Suzanne.
Oh, wow.
But it also doesn't seem like much of an attempt was made to find them.
Okay.
Like, I don't know. I got kind of weird vibes from it, even watching the documentary. Like, it didn't seem like much was tried. I don't know. I feel like if my child went missing, I would be plastering posters everywhere if I could, or at least word of mouth, or...
Although also, if she's writing bad checks for diapers, she may not have the money to...
Right. Yeah. And I guess she was in, like, a new area she didn't know. They had just moved to Dallas.
And if you don't have a community, how do you start
how do you
people?
really find... Yeah. But it just doesn't seem like... I don't know. I mean, I guess when the police tell you no, there's not much else you can do, but...
You kind of give up hope.
I guess so. It just seems so sad that, like, nobody ever tried to find her.
Yeah.
Like, she just was gone. I don't know.
That's really sad.
Anyway, they should have filed a missing persons report.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know why that didn't happen.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah. But Franklin moved to Oklahoma City with Suzanne, where they adopted the names Warren and Sharon Marshall. And then at some point they moved to Georgia. And so then we kind of start the timeline that we had already been through.
Gotcha.
Today, Franklin Floyd is still on death row, awaiting execution, and Michael's body has still never been found.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you know if there's an exexecution date?
They have not set a date.
Okay.
So, like, realistically, he'll probably just die on death row.
Okay.
Naturally.
And where is he located?
I believe he's in Florida because he was convicted of the murder in there.
Okay.
Like, it was Tampa.
Okay.
So I believe he's in Florida. But I'm not totally sure. But I think so.
Gotcha.
But it took 24 years after Suzanne's death to discover her true identity.
That's so sad.
Like, for 24 years, they had no idea who this girl was.
Actually was. And really
she
for
didn't
most of
even
her
know.
life. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is so sad.
Yeah. But in 2017, Suzanne's family replaced her headstone with one that had her real name, because up until now it had just said Tonya. Mm-hmm. They didn't even have a last name. Like, they didn't know. Mm-hmm. But they replaced it with one that had her real name, as well as an epitaph written by her biological daughter. So she's gotten to, like, through this, form connections with at least her biological grandfather, Suzanne's father, who I think, I don't remember what the story was, but he had, like, gotten deployed, and then the mom, like, just kind of got with somebody else. There's just, like, questionable things that don't really make sense. But, yeah, so he wanted, whenever his granddaughter reached out, he was like, yeah, that's the closest I can get to Suzanne. Like, of course I want a relationship with her. Like, and so they have a relationship, but Suzanne's mom, like, was just like, no.
Okay, yeah, that is weird.
Isn't it weird? Yeah, that's why I was kind of like, I mean, you didn't really try to find her. Like, it's just strange. Like, I understand, like, not having the means to be able to, but, like, not even wanting to get to know your biological granddaughter.
Yeah, that's weird. I mean, I know everybody goes through grief in different ways, but, like, yeah, that does seem odd.
It just seems odd.
It does seem odd.
It just seems odd. I don't know. But anyway, that is the story of Suzanne Savakis and Michael Hughes.
Wow.
Right?
That's crazy. All the different names, all the different places.
It's so confusing. So I hope this made sense.
I mean, it made sense to me. I think you did a great job of explaining it. Because, yeah, that's a wild story. It's just all the different. And so we don't know who, like, Suzanne's kids' fathers were?
No, we have no idea.
Okay.
We know that at least Michael's father was not Franklin Floyd.
Okay.
But we don't know about the others. We don't know. I mean, we know nothing.
Wow.
Yeah. So just a lot of unanswered questions.
Jeez.
Yeah. So.
Wow.
That's my story.
All right.
You ready for yours? I'm excited to hear yours.
Okay, so mine does not have the twists and turns, but it's pretty rough. So,
I'm excited for it.
So just trigger warning. I'm going to be talking about the murder of Jamie Rose.
Okay. I haven't heard of this one.
If my computer will work.
Oh, I hope it works.
Okay, here we go. Okay, so the sources that I use to get this information is the Purcell Register, the Oklahoman, KSWO.com, the Norman Transcript, NBC News, CNN.com, Murderpedia.org,
love it,
and TulsaWorld.com. So on April 12th of 2006, Jamie Rose went to the library and she never returned home.
Oh. These true crime episodes are rough. They just start so terribly.
I know.
Like, there's nothing fun about them.
No, there's not.
Okay.
This one's really brutal. I'm just like, trigger warning.
I probably should have done a trigger warning too, but
yeah.
It's true crime.
It's
People
true
expect
crime. It. Yeah. It's rough.
Okay.
It would be 2 days before anyone knew what happened to her. Jamie was 10 years old. She was in the 5th grade. She attended Purcell Intermediate School. She lived with her father, Curtis Bolin. And I saw varying reports. Some people said Jamie Rose. Some people said Jamie Bolin. So, like, I'm not sure for sure what her last name was, if it was Rose or Bolin. But they lived together in an apartment in Purcell. So a big search happened. The FBI got involved. And as they were searching for her, the police noticed a man acting suspiciously. This man was Kevin Ray Underwood. He's 26, and he lived in the apartment near them. He lived in the same building, just like a floor below them, and like across, it said like across a breezeway from them.
Oh, okay. So really close.
Really close. So he knew Jamie and her dad, and he had volunteered to search.
Uh-oh.
Great job to those people that actually search and did not commit the crime.
Yes.
But, spoiler, he's not just a nice-hearted volunteer.
I assumed that there may be more sinister reasons for him to volunteer.
Yeah. So police stopped him at a roadblock, and they noticed that he was acting suspiciously. So they had a roadblock, and they were questioning people around the apartment. And so the police officer realized he didn't seem to be acting right. So they took him to the police station for further questioning. Okay. And during the interrogation, a horrifying tale began to emerge.
Oh, no.
So, a little bit about Underwood. A little bit about Kevin. Kevin had a pet rat.
Okay.
And he would keep it on his shoulder while he was outside to gain the attention of kids.
Oh. All right.
So he actually used this as a way to get Jamie's attention.
Oh.
Why
a rat? Why not a puppy? Or a kitten? Why a rat?
Okay, so this is not any of the stories that I pulled up. Okay, so...
Ooh, inside scoop.
Inside scoop. So, I don't know this guy's name, but my mom had an FBI agent that would come and speak to her classes. My mom teaches at a university, and for a psychology class, she had different speakers come in, and one of them was this FBI agent. Okay. And he was actually on this case. And what he said is that he chose a rat because it was so unusual, and it would get the attention more than just a cute puppy or something like that.
Right. I mean, I guess kids are told, like, if somebody has a puppy and wants you to go with them. Like, don't do that.
Right. But
they're probably not saying, if somebody has a rat and wants you to go with them, don't do that.
Yeah. So just add that to the list. Not candy, not puppies, or rats.
Yes.
Yeah, just add that to the list. So he had that, and he would use it to get her attention.
Okay.
And not just hers. Like, he would get, other people's attention with it too. But so Jamie had stopped previously many times to pet the rat on his shoulder and interacted with him. The night before she disappeared, she went downstairs to use a payphone to order pizza, and Underwood offered his phone. And at first she said no, because she'd get in trouble for going into a stranger's apartment.
Right.
But eventually, after him pushing her, she agreed to come in and use his phone.
Oh, no.
So she is fine. He doesn't do anything then.
Right, but that's, grooming her to feel comfortable coming into his apartment.
Yes, exactly.
Ugh.
So she goes back home that night. The next day, he was able to get her to come in. And I'm not for sure. I couldn't tell for sure from the stories if she actually made it to the library and it was on her way back that she stopped at his apartment, or if she never made it to the library.
Okay.
But she was on a bike, and I'm not sure if she, like I said, if she was leaving and stopped at his apartment or was coming back. But anyways, she went to his apartment. He was able to convince her to come in to look at his rat. And she was in his apartment for about 15 minutes while he was deciding whether or not to go through with his plan.
Oh, no.
Ultimately, he decided to go through with it. So he grabbed a wooden cutting board, and he tried to knock her out with it. But unfortunately, it was not working. And so he was just beating her over the head repeatedly with the cutting board.
She was 10?
She was 10.
Oh.
And this part broke my heart. He said that the whole time he was beating her with it, she was saying, I'm sorry, please let me go. I'm so sorry, I'm sorry. Please forgive me, I'm sorry.
That is tragic.
And
that is so awful.
Yeah, and he was like, I didn't understand why she was saying sorry. I was the one doing it. I should be the one sorry.
Yeah, you should be.
You should be. Yeah, you think? Yeah.
Well, at least he knew he should be sorry, I guess.
We'll get to it, but, like, he knows what he did was wrong.
Right.
But it's like it's weird.
Ugh.
He's an interesting character. So eventually when beating her is not working out, and her cries were never heard by anybody. Nobody heard her cries. Nobody came to help her.
Oh, my goodness.
They don't know why nobody heard her.
Yeah.
Maybe she wasn't able to cry out loud enough.
Right.
I don't know. But nobody heard her cries. And after the cutting board didn't work to subdue her, he strangled her with duct tape and with his bare hands. And so the autopsy when they eventually did an autopsy, it showed that she did die by asphyxiation.
Okay.
After she was dead, he dragged her body to the bathroom where he began to sexually assault her body. Some places said he did rape her, and some said it was not a full-on rape, but she was sexually assaulted in some way after death, which was part of his plan.
It's obviously absolutely awful and disgusting, but at least she wasn't alive for it.
Yeah, I know.
I don't know that that's even better, but at least she wasn't.
I know. At least she didn't have that before she died. Yeah. And then he had wanted to decapitate her body, so he moved her body to the bathtub.
Always the bathtub.
Yeah. He took a decorative dagger that he had and tried to decapitate her with it, which
that's
didn't
not going to work.
No, it didn't work.
So he's not even smart on top of all this.
No, absolutely not. He's stupid. And also he mentioned something about her body being heavier to manipulate than he thought, and I'm like, sorry for your difficulty?
Yeah.
Like,
sorry,
he was complaining.
Difficult.
Like, it was like a complaint. Like, yeah, it was harder to move than I thought.
Well, it's a whole freaking body.
Yeah.
Like, what do you expect?
Yeah. So his original plan, we'll go back to his plan later, but, like, his original plan was that he would actually hang her body up in the bathroom and drain it of blood after he decapitated her.
Oh.
Yeah.
Was there some sort of, like, satanic ritual?
Not satanic ritual, but he had other things he wanted to do.
Okay. Oh, this is wild.
Yeah. So, and by the way, his, like, confession is on YouTube. So if
we'll link to it.
Yeah.
If you are...
It's, like, in 3 different parts. So if you want to watch it, it is on YouTube. But... So he tried to decapitate her, he couldn't do it, and then he was disgusted by the blood and the mess that it made.
Wow, how awful for him. He's going to have to clean up the blood
Yeah.
from the child he murdered. How inconvenient.
Inconvenient for him. Poor thing. So he decided that he didn't even want to look at her anymore. He even said, I wish I hadn't done it. I wish I could take it back. And it's like, well too little too late. Like,
yeah, that doesn't help. I mean,
no. Like, the time for remorse was a long time ago.
Right. Yeah, you've passed that. Like, if you've done this, you have... It doesn't matter that you regret it now. Like, I'm sorry, you still did it.
You did it. Like,
I mean, you know it's wrong. I don't...
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah, so he placed her body. He had taken off her clothes during the sexual assault. He put her body in a plastic blue tote. And he put the towel that he had used to clean up the blood, as well as her clothes, in the tub with her. And then he sealed the tote, with duct tape.
Okay.
So it's completely sealed up, and he sticks it in his closet.
Oh.
Until he can figure out a way to dispose of it, I guess.
He really didn't think this through at all, did he?
Oh, no.
He didn't have anything he needed.
He talks about his quote-unquote plan, but it is not planned out.
Right.
It is...
He used a decorative dagger. Like, what?
Yeah. So apparently he did buy a hacksaw, and he did buy a meat tenderizer because his plan was actually to eat part of the body.
Oh, no.
Yes. But after seeing all the blood, he got disgusted and couldn't go through with it.
Okay.
But yeah, his plan was he, like, was going to use a hacksaw to cut into the skull and take out part of the brain.
Oh, my goodness.
He was going to eat part of the organs. And then he said that he was actually going to keep the skull and, like, dispose of the rest of the body, but keep the skull and, like, leave it on a desk so it could watch him.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
I don't like hearing about this stuff so close to home. Like, that's insane. I can't believe people actually think like that.
Yeah. So, during his investigation, he gave investigators permission to search his apartment.
Okay.
Yeah, so, 2 days later, they saw him acting fishy.
Yeah.
They brought him in for questioning. During his interrogation, he gave them full permission to search the apartment. He
wasn't really concerned about being caught, was he?
Not all the screws are tightly screwed in on this guy.
Yeah.
He's got a few loose, a few missing. So they're searching his apartment, and one of the FBI agents comes across the plastic tub, and when he asks Kevin Underwood about it, he says, oh, it's full of comic books. They're special comic books, and I have it sealed to keep out the moisture so that they're protected. And the FBI agent's like, well, can I look in it? And he's like, yeah, go ahead.
But
yeah.
I guess just trying to play it cool and being like, oh, he'll change his mind if I'm so cool about it.
I guess maybe that was his thought. I don't know. And then the FBI agent opens it, and when he first looks in, he sees a blue shirt that was the last thing that she was seen in. And he says, this is not comic books, this is clothes. And he said, go ahead and arrest me. I hit her and I chopped her up.
Wow.
Yeah. Which is also not correct, because he did not chop her up. That was his plan.
That's what he wanted to do.
That's what he wanted to do, but he did not chop her up. The only cut that he made was on her throat, trying to decapitate her.
Oh my goodness.
I say the only, like...
Right.
But, I mean...
Right.
But he didn't chop her up.
Right.
The rest of her body was intact. So a little bit more about Underwood. He had a history of mental illness, and before I go any further, I am not saying that his mental illness is what caused this.
Right.
He is the reason for his decisions, not his mental illness.
Right.
There are plenty of people with mental illness that lead perfectly good lives. Like, they contribute to society.
Right. Yeah.
Like, this is him. This is not the mental illness.
Yes,
so
this is
I'm giving
poor choices and a
poor
terrible
choices.
person.
Yes. So later at this time he hadn't been diagnosed with it yet, but later he was diagnosed with schizotypal personality disorder,
Okay.
as well as bipolar disorder, and he had already been diagnosed with depression and anxiety.
Okay.
So he had gone through different periods of time of taking his medication, being off it, going back and forth. He said at the time of this that he was on his medication, but that when he got on it this last time, that it was doing weird things and, like, increasing his fantasies.
Okay.
I don't know that a medication would really do that.
I don't know enough about it to say, but it sounds like he's just trying to blame it on something.
That's what it sounds like to me. Like,
Right.
in the interview, like, the way he's saying it makes it seem like he's just trying to blame something.
Right. Well, and I would think if you get on it and realize it's increasing your homicidal fantasies, like maybe go get on something else, or don't even take it at that point. Like, if it's gonna make you murder somebody.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, to quote the Wine and Crime podcast, one thing that they say a lot is mental health is not your fault, but it is your responsibility.
Yes, that's a good one.
And I think that's very applicable here. Like, if he's having these thoughts and he knows logically that they're wrong,
right,
he needs to seek help.
Yes.
That is your responsibility to do that.
Right.
So he claims he was taking medication at the time, but he also states that he knows what he did was wrong. Like, he was fully aware of the fact that what he did was wrong.
And he just did it anyway.
He did it anyways.
Okay.
In fact, when they were leaving him from his apartment, he actually said, "I'm going to burn in hell."
Well, I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what he wanted to hear from that, but yeah,
and then
you're right.
Another little interesting tidbit is when they led him from his apartment, they actually did not lead him from the apartment in handcuffs, because there are about 20 members of Jamie's family, like, holding vigil outside of his apartment.
Oh.
And they were afraid that if they let him out in handcuffs, that they would attack. And one of her aunts later said, "Yeah, if we had known, we would have kicked his butt."
They should have let him out in handcuffs, is all I have to say.
I would have let him out.
Let justice happen.
Let it happen naturally.
Yeah.
I would have let him out in handcuffs and been like, sorry. So it was interesting. At first, he said that he had only had his cannibalistic fantasies for about a month.
Okay.
And then later in the interview, the FBI agent interviewing him is like, "Okay, so what are we going to find on your computer? Because remember, we're going to dig through your computer.
Right.
Are you telling us accurate information? When did you start having these thoughts?" And he was like, "Well, I guess the cannibalistic ones were about a year ago."
Oh, okay.
So he's had
This was nothing new.
This was not new. This had been going on for a while. So he had not specifically targeted Jamie at first. He had several people in mind around the apartment complex that he was thinking about, like a woman, another young kid, a young boy.
So he, like, admitted who else he had thought about?
Oh, yeah.
I wonder if they know how close to death they were.
Yeah, and then it just...
That's terrifying.
It is, because then just one day... And he even said, like, at one point, I started to get to like Jamie. She was nice. She was really sweet. And he even said, like, she reminds me of my sister. I can't do this to her. And
but he did it anyway?
He did it anyways. And then he even said when she came into his apartment, well, like, if it wasn't me, it would have been somebody else, because she was too trusting. She just came in as if, like, it was her fault. Like, no.
Oh, my goodness.
You sicko. It was your fault.
Right.
You're the one that did it. She's a kid.
She's a child. Like...
Yeah.
Oh. Awful.
So, but so it's gonna get kind of graphic.
Okay.
So one of the things that he was planning is he was planning on abducting somebody. He was gonna tie them up, and he was gonna force them to watch porn of all different types, including the cannibalistic stuff, including like the darker stuff that he had been watching. And
this poor 10-year-old child.
Yeah, but he didn't do that part with Jamie.
Okay, good.
Yeah, he didn't do that part with Jamie. I think he got carried away with trying to subdue her and it not working, and it just kind of falling apart.
Right.
And but that was his plan. And the interviewer even asked, he was like, "Were you hoping they would enjoy it?" He was like, "No, I didn't figure they would."
Then what is the point of that? Like, I don't understand.
Yeah. And
that's so weird.
And he was like, so you knew you'd probably have to force them? And he was like, yeah, I figured I'd probably have to do that.
Then,
yeah.
like, what pleasure do you get out of that? I don't understand.
I don't know. But yeah, he had been watching, he said, like, I would watch porn and regular stuff wouldn't do it for me anymore. So I just had to keep going to, like, more intense, more dark stuff. And
Yikes.
the more I watched it, the more I needed something else and something else and something else. Like, nothing would satisfy that.
That's not good.
No. But yeah, so I've already said he bought a meat tenderizer. He bought the hacksaw to break into the skull, which he never did because, again, he was disgusted by her blood when he did it.
So, like, you can't even... You're gonna murder and eat somebody, but you also can't handle the sight of blood?
Yeah. Yeah.
What was he thinking? I don't... Oh, my goodness. Okay, sorry.
No, you're good. So, he had a blog where he had wrote about his fantasies getting out of hand.
Oh.
He even said, if people knew the kinds of things I was thinking about anymore, I'd be locked up.
Yikes.
Yeah. You think?
That's so scary that it was, like, out there online that he was almost, like, asking for help in a way. Like, not really, but,
not
like,
really,
putting it out there, you know? Like, and still, like, nothing happened.
Apparently he had made, like, a couple of comments like that to people at work. Like, something about, I just think the craziest things or something. And people wouldn't believe what goes on in my head. And
which, like... I mean, I can't blame them for not, like, reporting something, because, like, that just sounds really attention-seeking, and, like, oh, I'm so unique. And,
it does.
Wow, you would never believe what goes on in my head.
Yeah, and I don't blame any of the people at his work for not, like, reporting it, and his parents said they had no idea.
Yeah.
But it's, like, like, somebody even said he had a creepy laugh, and it's like, well, you're not going to report somebody for having a creepy laugh, but, like, afterwards...
Hello, 911. This person has a creepy laugh. You should check them out.
Yeah, I think they're a serial killer just based on
they just
their
have
laugh.
a creepy laugh. Like, I don't know. I just get serial killer vibes.
Yeah, he has a serial killer laugh. Like, lock him up. And so he actually did have, like, some stuff about serial killers in his apartment. It was about the Mansons, and I can't remember who else was the serial killers that he was studying. Well, he said he wasn't studying. He was just watching it for entertainment or something. I don't know.
Right, because that's really entertaining. Yeah. As we record podcast. Sorry. I said that, and then I was like, oh, wait.
But we also don't kill people.
yeah. But let's put that out there. We are not serial killers or murderers of any kind.
Yeah.
Just putting that out there.
So he had worked at Carl's Jr. for about 9 years, and his supervisor said he was a boring person that rarely smiled. Okay. He said it took an act of Congress to get him to smile.
Oh, wow.
But he said, like, that Kevin would give his wife rides home from work and would spend time around his kids, and they said, like, he was, like, odd, but they never felt uncomfortable around him. Like, he seemed perfectly nice.
That's so crazy.
Yeah. And most people said, like, he seemed nice, just a little odd.
Right.
And that would, like, probably have to do with, like, his social anxiety, because he was diagnosed with anxiety.
There are plenty of perfectly nice people who are just a little odd. Like, that's no big deal.
No big deal. Although the last year before he was arrested, he worked at a grocery store, and the people there called him Zombie Kevin.
Oh, okay.
So
like, something had changed.
Something had changed a little bit. So, and I don't have this in my notes, but because there were also, I think he had told, like, his lawyers, and they presented it a little bit in the trial, that he was bullied as a child and that maybe there had been some abuse in the home.
Well, but you're still responsible for your own actions.
You're still responsible for your own actions. And there wasn't a lot on that. Mm-hmm. Basically, it was only, like, presented at trial. Like, nothing, there was no bigger story to that.
Okay.
So
it was kind of a, like, oh, let's try to give some reason of why.
Right. So I'm not sure if those are substantiated claims or not.
Right. Yeah. Many people have really rough childhoods and don't murder people.
And don't murder people.
Like that's not an excuse.
It's not an excuse.
It's, I guess, maybe a reason why, but it's not an excuse.
It's not an excuse.
You know, like,
yeah. But he apparently, like, had I mean, I don't know if he had a good relationship with his family or not, because it, like, at some places it said he did have a good relationship with him, but yet his father hadn't been to his apartment in, like, over a year.
Oh,
and it
okay.
seems like his
Did they
parents...
live close?
It seemed like his parents also lived in Purcell.
Oh, okay. That is a little odd.
So, maybe I'm wrong, but that's the impression that I got.
Right.
So, I don't know. I mean, I don't see how you have a close relationship and they haven't been to his apartment in over a year.
Yeah, that is odd.
But, and he even said in the interview, like, this is going to kill my mom. I hope my mom doesn't find out. And it's like, how is your mom not going to find out about this?
You literally murdered someone.
And he's
how
like,
would she not find out?
He's like, this is literally going to kill her.
Well, then you should have thought of that before you literally killed someone. Like,
yeah. So, but he did go to trial. He went to trial in 2008. He didn't react throughout the entirety of his trial, other than when his father pleaded to not give him the death penalty. Oh. When he asked for mercy, he was seen crying. But
yeah.
I'm like, so that makes you cry, but, like, you seeing yourself confess to the murder of a child doesn't make you cry?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
Yeah, that's weird.
And in his confession video, like, you can see, like, at the beginning, he's not really talking, but then as he's, like, talking more and more about it, he gets excited.
Oh.
Like, you can see he gets more animated talking about all this stuff.
Right.
But so in the trial, his parents didn't go to the part where he did his confession, and neither did Jamie's family, either that or they left during it because they didn't want to stay for it.
Yeah, I can't imagine being able to listen to that.
No. So he was determined to be guilty. The jury only took 20 minutes.
Ooh, that's quick.
To decide guilt. I was on a jury to determine guilt over if a guy shot his brother in the butt, and we took an hour and a half.
What a story. So a story for another day.
So, like, it took us an hour and a half. It only took them 20 minutes to decide his guilt and give him the death penalty.
Yeah, that's really quick.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess when you have an actual confession.
Yeah.
I mean, how much?
Yeah, I mean, he fully confessed. So in 2016, his legal team tried to get him off death row, saying that it would be unconstitutional, cruel, and unusual punishment to give him the death penalty because of his mental health issues, because he's been diagnosed with these different things that could possibly be treated with medication.
He murdered a 10-year-old child.
Yeah. Yeah. And the judge was like, no, there's no basis for this. And so he threw it out.
Yeah, good.
And so his execution is set for December 7th of 2023.
Okay.
So, I'm not typically, like, I'm not a big death penalty person, but in a case like this, I'm like, oh yeah.
Right.
Like,
in
he
a
needs
case
to be
where
gone.
it's so, like,
when it's so
open,
clear.
shut, like,
yeah.
He confessed. There's no
questions
whatsoever
about it.
And, yeah.
There's no questions about who did this.
Right. Yeah.
I'm like, and he's openly admitted it. And I don't know that he would be able to. I don't see him being able to change his behavior.
Yeah, I don't know that someone who has done that sort of thing is really capable of change.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess that gets into a lot of, like, moral and philosophical
but
questions, but I don't.
I'd be like,
I'd be shocked.
he needs to go.
Yeah.
So that is the story of, and I was going to put this in my notes. There was a really, the family of Jamie.
Oh, okay.
The family of Jamie has talked about multiple times how rough this has been on them, obviously.
Right.
Losing the family member. And one of Jamie's grandmother, Rose Fox, said, "There will be too much money left at Christmas and too few presents under the tree. Easter will have one less basket to make. Thanksgiving, too much turkey left over and not eaten. In August, one birthday cake and party will be unneeded."
That is so sad.
Yeah.
Oh,
it made me cry when I first read that.
Yeah.
So, I hope that him being put in prison has helped.
Yeah.
With
that, at least there was some justice.
That there was some justice. Right. I know that, the whole process, the legal process with somebody being on death row is a long, drawn-out process.
Right.
And that's unbelievably hard on the family. So our thoughts and prayers go
Yes,
out with the family.
absolutely.
Because it doesn't matter how much time has passed, you don't get over something.
No,
like
you
that.
never get over something like that. That's awful.
But yeah, so that's
Okay.
the story of the murder of Jamie Rose.
Wow. These true crime episodes are depressing.
Yep.
Yikes. That was a good one, though. I mean, it was a really good one.
Yeah.
It's just tragic and awful.
Yeah.
Yikes. I don't know how to end an episode like this.
You know, I don't either.
So thank you guys for listening. If anyone made it through that, because these stories were rough. I can't believe these sort of things happen in Oklahoma.
Yeah.
That's what blows my mind, is like it's so close, you know?
Yeah, it's not like some, I mean, Purcell's not a big town. Like,
No.
it's a quiet
I drive through it all the
country
time.
town. Yeah.
Like, probably once a week.
I mean, like, it's got some, like, it's not a country town like Conemaugh is, but it's still, like...
It's still small.
It's still small.
Yeah.
Like, it is not a big town.
Yeah.
And to have something that horrific happen is...
So crazy.
Yeah.
Well,
So...
thanks for joining us on our first true crime episode.
Remember, add pet rats to the list of what you warn your kids about.
Yes. Tell your children. Warn them.
No animals, no candy.
No animals, no candy. No animals of any kind.
Of any kind. Not just puppies. Any kind. Any animals.
Speaking of animals, when I first got here to Catherine's, I was just like scrolling through Facebook while she was finishing up notes, and I saw this Facebook Marketplace ad, like listing for like hold on, I'm gonna bring it up and I'm gonna read it.
Great.
I'm gonna read it. Oh shoot, I didn't save it. Hold on, I'm gonna find this. Elevator music. Thanks. Okay, here's this Facebook Marketplace listing that I found. It's in Shawnee. It's in Shawnee, so very close. It's a picture of a possum in a cage, looking very angry that it is caged.
Yes.
And it says, "Sad possum free." And the description, am I legally allowed to do, I'm sure it's fine, whatever.
You're not listing a person's name.
I'm not listing a name. But it says, "This guy has been creeping around my house since he was a tiny baby. His mom died and he had a few siblings, but we trapped them months ago and sent them to the outdoors. This guy returned and now it's too cold, and IDK if he would make it outside. He's cute and probably could be someone's awesome possum. I have till noon to get rid of him. Please somebody come take him home and love him. He wants to be loved, I can tell, but I can't do it."
He definitely does not want to be loved.
He's so angry. Like, these pictures, he's like hissing. He does not want to be loved. He wants to be left alone. And if he's
wants
a
to be
possum, it's not too cold for him outside.
It's not too cold from outside. He is absolutely 100% going to be
He's
fine outside.
perfectly fine. It's so funny. I was just like, only in Oklahoma.
Yeah.
And just the fact that the title was "Sad Possum Free." Part of me wants to comment and be like, "I'll take him."
and then
Let him go. But this is just, it's wild.
Yeah.
So
no, you don't go find the person with the free animal. Like,
I know,
no.
but then it was like, oh, cautionary tale here. I
Yeah.
guess I should not approach the person with the free
Yeah,
sad
don't-
possum.
Yeah, don't approach the person with the free sad
As much as I want to. It's so funny. I don't even know. Oh, it just cracked me up. It's hilarious. But anyway, lesson learned. I will not approach the person with the free possum.
No, don't do it.
Yeah. Anyway, that was a ride. Okay. Thank you guys for listening. We have our Instagram, if you want to follow us on Instagram, at Spooky Okie Podcast. We also have a Patreon, which I will link to on the Instagram because I don't know how to find it. So
Yeah.
we'll do that if you want to support us. Hopefully the audio was better this time though, because
Yeah.
we are trying out different mics.
For sure. And
So
don't forget to leave a 5-star rating and review.
Please, we could use it.
Yeah, it'll help us.
I rated myself.
I actually don't even know if I have yet. I need to do that.
Catherine. Yes, go give us a 5-star rating.
I think I tried and
Apple
then I hadn't
Podcasts
listened
and
to it.
Spotify.
Yes, Apple Podcasts and Spotify.
Yes.
All right. Thank you guys for listening. We'll talk to you next week.
And stay spooky.
Stay spooky.